Today what I would like to do for you guys is I want to show you a square haircut, and this is done in a graduated form. So the key focus of this haircut is very strong lines, very geometric lines, and done in a very heavy fashion. Now I know this haircut is not popular today, but I'm going to be in another episode showing you how to take this classic haircut, which is very much called or was always known as the wedge. And we're going to take that and modernize it for you in a future episode. But for today, we're going to show you this techniques. We're going to show you how to keep some classic work in the haircuts. We're going to do a nice horizontal line in the back, horizontal line on the sides, creating this box for you. And again, we're going to do it in the classic graduated form. So I'm going to get started here for you guys, and I'm going to just take a nice horizontal section right out the back here. And this is more designer, well, more of a, let's say, more of a precision type cut. Takes a little bit more detail involved and things like that when we're working on this. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our time doing this particular haircut, smaller sections and stuff. Important because it's a buildup of weight in when we're talking about a wedge haircut. And we want to make sure that we're doing it the right way so we don't wind up with steps and zigzag. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to come down to about here, and we're going to do a nice horizontal line on this person's neck. We're going to come in with an underhand technique, and I'm going to cut this at a one-length fashion right against the base of the neck. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is once I've cut the length that I want, I'm going to come to the other side, match that up. As you notice, by pulling back behind this ear, we're going to not only be using the one-length haircut, but we're also shifting it back, which is going to give us the corners that we need. So when we do this haircut, we are actually creating the corner right behind the ears. Now, this haircut is going to be lifted up away from the head 45 degrees, and I'm going to do that right from the very get-go. And I'm going to stand here, stand to the side, and I'm going to change my position of my scissors. As you notice, what I'm doing now, as opposed to doing before, is I'm cutting palm to palm, which is the overhand technique. And we're going to just lift that out 45 degrees from the base. And as opposed to working underhand, which I was doing when I did one length, I'm now going 45 degrees, shifting that hair back behind the ear, and we're cutting that baseline again. Not taking any length off, just creating the graduation that I need. Going to continue this sectioning up the head. And as you can see, half-inch subsections, working our way up. And keeping that squareness or straightness in this haircut. We're going to take a small amount of our guide from underneath, bringing that hair up and back, looking for the guideline, and taking the hair off. Again, shifting behind that ear, creating that straight line, coming out to the side. Again, picking up only a small amount of our guideline from underneath, bringing that hair straight back 45 degrees and taking it off. Behind the ear, bringing it back, finding your guide, and taking that hair off. Checking your lengths as you go, taking this in a steady fashion, back and forth motion, getting into the groove, taking up those sections. A lot of you might think, why am I taking such small section things? Well, when you talk about precision haircutting or doing a haircut where you have to have precise type lines, the reality is if I were to take large chunks of sections, in other words, if I just took a section that was much bigger here, what happened is, if rather than having a gentle line coming up and out, I'd wind up actually having steps where there would be a chunk, then a chunk, then a chunk. And we don't want that in our graduation. We want to create this, and the reason why is we're doing it in a horizontal fashion, meaning I'm taking the sections horizontally. When we talk about horizontal sections versus vertical sections, we are making sure that we are building up the maximum amount of weight. In other words, horizontal sectioning in a haircut is heavier and builds up more weight than vertical sectioning. Now, in this day and age, we are doing mostly all our haircuts in a vertical sections, and that is to create the lightness and airiness of the haircuts that the people want today. But back when we used to do heavier haircuts of these wedges and stuff, we were doing them with horizontal sectioning, whether it be graduation or layers, and they were giving us a buildup of weight or a bigger, stronger haircut. So I'm going to just continue with my haircut in this fashion, taking my sections down horizontally about 1/2 inch apiece. And we're getting up towards that ear area where I'm going to actually be working 2 different lines, the back line and the front line, or the side line. Remembering always when you're doing this haircut that the projection of the haircut is super, super important. The position of the head is important, as well as where I'm pulling that hair down. So we're using not only elevation here to create this haircut, we are also using shifting in this haircut. So the hair is being pulled back behind that ear, as well as just that little extra right there, as well as elevating the haircut. Now, once we get to the top of the ear here, we're going to actually be combining the 2 sections together, but they are going to be cut different at different times. So I'm going to take the next section down, and I'm going to combine these 2 sections together. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. One of the things that we always work with when we're talking about hair cutting is that the laws of hair cutting are always going to stay the same. We've mentioned that earlier or more times on this show in earlier episodes. And the reality is that when you're designing haircuts, that helps you to create the design you wish. So when we talk about the haircuts that we're doing here for you, and I'm using this horizontal sectioning patterns, I'm actually trying to show you how to build up a strong, heavy haircut. The other thing that I want to tell you about is I want to tell you about the design of this haircut. We are doing this haircut in a very horizontal square fashion, or very straight lines. In design, when you talk about straight lines or square shapes are always going to be much heavier and much more masculine in a haircut than if you were to do a rounded line or a curved line. So we're going to be doing this, and we're trying to emphasize the strength of this haircut and how strong and heavy it's going to be. So that's what made me choose the straight line versus the rounded line. This haircut can be done in a rounded design, just like it can be done here in the horizontal fashion or square fashion. But when we do that, we want to know that the design of this is going to be much different than the design for the rounded haircut. So what we choose as far as design is entirely up to you and the client. but remembering that the horizontals or the squares or the straight lines are going to be a much heavier, stronger haircut than the vertical. Make sure when you do this haircut, you're never going to try and pick up all this hair from down here. You just want to take from underneath that section so that you don't see multiple guidelines. When you go to look for your guideline, you want to make sure that you see only one guideline and come out to the longest guideline when you're doing this particular haircut. Once we're satisfied with the lengths in the back, we're going to then go into our sides. And cut the sides in a horizontal fashion. We're going to come to our longest length, which you could see is in our corner here, and we're going to keep that corner. If I were to come in and I were to cut that corner off, I now have a rounded design as opposed to a square design. So we're going to come here, again, drop to the longest point right there to the corner, keeping the fingers horizontal with the ground. We're going to just take that off in a very horizontal fashion. Before I go to the other side, I'm going to elevate that, bring it out, just like we did on the previous down at the nape area, and we're going to keep this by elevating it and going right to that corner, which is built into this haircut. That's the corner right behind the ear. We're going to do the same thing on the other side here. Again, dropping that hair down, going all the way down to that corner. Make sure you go to your longest length, cut your line, horizontal to the ground, and now elevate that up 45 degrees, come to your corner and change the position of the scissors to a palm to palm and take that hair off. Check lengths. If you're satisfied, you're ready to move on. So we're going to just continue in this haircut, working our way up the same way you just saw me. I'm going to take the sections from the side here and the back all together because we're doing a horizontal line throughout the haircut. Continuing taking small sections, doing it on both sides, and we'll be definitely finishing this up in a momentary fashion. Okay guys, so I wanted to show you the finished version of the haircut that we just showed you on the video. And again, I wanted to emphasize to you the design of this haircut. Again, not a up-to-date modern look. However, you got to know your basics first. You got to know how to do a good classic cut before you can go in and break it up and modernize it. But just for today, I wanted to show you how nice and square that line is through the back. And then when you come to the side, showing you that squareness coming into and building that corner behind each ear. And that is what makes this haircut such a classic. So the design is definitely square versus a round haircut. What I'd like to do for you in the future is, or in a little bit, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take the idea of this haircut, which is graduation, and show you a different way of going about it. Hey everybody, today what we're going to do is we're going to continue on something that we started for you in an earlier session. What we're going to do is we're going to be taking the designs that we made earlier, starting off with a graduated square bob, which you could see here. And in the previous session, what we did was we made a comparison to horizontal sectioning versus vertical sectioning. And as you could see by these two examples, The difference is that this here on the right is vertical sectioning. Vertical sectioning will give you a lighter area haircut in your graduation. Now, the horizontal is done on a square design or more of a straight line type effect, whereas the design on this haircut was done in a rounder shape for you, just to emphasize a softer, lighter haircut versus a heavier, stronger haircut. Today, what we're going to do for you is we're going to take these two examples and we're going to actually create a more modern look for them by creating a bunch of texturizing into these two classic cuts. Okay, so what I'd like to bring out for you guys today is I'm going to talk to you about fringes, because right now fringes are everything. Here in America we call it bang. Over in Europe that would be a nasty word in England, or it means something different, if you will. So I'm going to call them fringes here, and I want to bring out a couple of key points. One of the things is when you talk about clients and their eyes, when you talk about a client who has eyes maybe that are set a little too close together, one of the things we can do is we can make a wider fringe for them to actually bring the eyes apart. And the way I would do that is simply from the center of the crown area, simply come as deep as you possibly can with your triangle for the fringe area. So bringing it out as far to the temples as you possibly could. And that'll help to take a client whose fringe area or eye set is too close together. Now, the opposite goes for the same thing. If the client's eyes are too wide apart, what we would want to do is actually create a shorter or a smaller fringe and bring the hair as close to the side of each eye as possible. And the way we would do that is instead of taking the triangle too wide or wider, we would shorten or narrow this triangle so that it is smaller or closer to the eyes. The standard fringe for anyone that we normally would do as a customer would be from the center of the crown to the corner of each eyebrow. And that is the set point in which we normally go for our fringe. So what I'm going to do for you here is I'm going to come in and I'm going to take my triangle and we're going to go right to the corner of the eye. If you're unsure if you're hitting the corner of the eyebrow, just simply take your comb, run it along, and see if you're hitting the corner of the eyebrow. And that's going to separate my fringe area to my side of my design. We're going to do the same thing on the other side for you. And again, just coming down from the center of the crown to the corner of the eyebrow. And once we're done with that, we are ready to get started with the design. So what we're going to do now for you is we're going to actually create a double fringe. We're going to take a fringe area and we're going to create a horizontal with the underneath part of this fringe. And then on the second part, we're going to do a side sweeping fringe, which is going to push either to the left or to the right. In the basic laws of hair cutting, short hair pushes and supports long hair. So if I want this client to wear their hair over to the right here, I will put my short area on the left. Opposite works as well. If I decide I want to sweep it over to the left side, I will put my short area on the right side. But before we do that, we're going to determine how much fringe area we want in the under fringe or the underneath part of this fringe. And we will then take that amount out and we will then create a fringe area for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this haircut, and the way I come in and do a fringe is I'm going to take this hair and we're going to go underneath with a closed pair of scissors. And because the head is curved back this way, I am going to actually cut the hair so that it creates a straighter fringe up this way. So I'll be slightly shorter in the sides and slightly longer in the center so that it would overcome the curvature of the forehead area. And we're going to do that by simply taking our closed scissors, going underneath and lifting this hair away from the head so that we keep it a safe distance away from the client. And we're going to come in and we're going to start taking that off with point cutting. Now, this fringe area could be taken away or it can be kept for the client so that they could either show it off or they can hide it whenever they want. Working with the scissor, again, working in a short fashion, just so that I can see that it's not going to interrupt her vision when we're working with this. And again, just working in a point cutting fashion, taking that hair off. Checking lengths to make sure that we're even. Again, working on a mannequin is a little difficult to be able to see that there's no growth patterns, so it's tending to poke out now, but we will blow dry that down afterwards, and we will then show you the finished results. With a client with growth patterns coming down, this would be, of course, laying a lot flatter for us. Okay? So, once we're satisfied with that, we're going to now take the rest of the fringe area here, all the way from the back area here, and we're going to now take it and we're going to do our second part of our fringe. Now, there's a couple of ways I can do this. One, I can actually take this fringe area over to this side and cut it from short to long, or I could slide cut it, which I'm going to do here, and we're going to take it from a point where we decide to do it. I'm going to go from the corner of the eye here, and we're going to just slide cut downward and pushing that hair and taking that hair off as we go. Okay, going to again do that, bring it in, starting from where I stopped, pulling that hair and slide cutting down. Now I'm not worried of connecting it to my side over here, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a slide cut through that area, which is going to create a separate fringe area to the actual rest of the cut. And here you see the double fringe with the side sweep. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go into this haircut on the sides, creating softness. So the whole idea of the haircut, which was very geometric and very square in the beginning when we did the original haircut, we're now going in and we're softening it up and we're changing the design slightly. And I want a disconnection from the fringe area to here so that I have a separate fringe to the sides. I'm going to start on this side, which is going to separate the side from the back, and I'm always going to make sure that I do that so that when I do my slide cutting on the sides, I'm always going to make sure that I'm just where the ear connects to the face and the ear area, as you could see here, right where the ear connects to the face. And what we're going to do now is we're going to just take this, I'm going to bring my arm over the top, and we're going to create this nice softness right from the corner of the eye, pushing our scissors through, slide cutting that off. Now, if I wanted a softer or a more textured side here, I could actually have used a razor to take this hair off to create a much softer appearance than the slide cutting. But I think the slide cutting will give me what I want here, so I have a nice soft feeling around the edge there. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite side here for you. And we're going to take our side section, separate that. If I was in the salon, I'd raise my chair up to make it easier for me. Again, starting at the same point that I did on the opposite side, ignoring what I created with the fringe because that's totally separated. Starting at the corner of the eye, coming down with the scissors, catching the hair, and sliding down. Check one more time for balance. Seeing what we have as far as softness, and checking the balance in the haircut. Once you're satisfied with that, we're now ready to go into the texturizing technique of the haircut so that we can create what we want as far as softness here. With the design that I just did for you in the front, we are now going to go in and attack the interior or the back of this haircut. With the straightness or squareness of this haircut. I don't want to change that in any way. I want to keep the general shape of the haircut. I did change the design in the front because there was no design in the front before. So I've softened out the front, but now it's time to go in there and actually create softness through the back without changing the shape. And the way we're going to do that for you guys is we're going to actually create the softness with texturizing techniques. So we're going to go in and we're going to create softness, but again, keeping that strong shape of the squareness. Starting off with the technique in the back here, I'm going to be going in and I'm going to take vertical sections, again, lighter in area. And what I'm going to be doing for you guys is I'm going to create this technique by running my scissors through and upward. But again, making sure that the design stays the same length it was. And following the same process as I did when I did the haircut. Again, keeping the length of the design as we do this. This hair cutting technique seems very strong and drastic, but in reality, when you do this technique, the client can actually style their hair and it will not be noticeable depending on how they style it. But if I were to take this client after doing this technique and blow dry this down smooth with a certain type of brush, we would actually look like it was the original haircut that we had. However, when I go in and break it up and lift it up with product and or the type of way I style it, I can create a very funky, voluminous type of design. Again, the whole concept of doing this type of cutting is freehand cutting. What I suggest to any hairstylist out there, when you design a haircut or design a type of hairstyle that needs versatility for a client, they need to be able to change things up. And when you build the foundation haircut, that is important to make sure that you're doing a good, strong design to create the shape of the haircut. But when you're done with that strong haircut, you need to create the versatility, and texturizing, whatever technique you use, is a perfect way for them to be able to take that good, beautiful, strong haircut that has a great shape to it and make it look different. One of the cautions that I will give you is when you are texturizing, especially on wet hair, because there are techniques that are done on wet hair and there are techniques that are done on dry hair. Make sure that when you are doing it on wet or dry hair, do not lose the initial structure of your haircut. So if you go overboard, if you go too far with your texturizing techniques, what's going to happen is you're going to lose the shape. It's like taking too many bricks out of a building. What happens is eventually you lose the integrity of the strength of the building, and your building is going to come tumbling down. So it is imperative to have the idea of doing a good, strong build-up, a good, strong building, and the texturizing techniques, think of them as the artistic part of the building, or to make it interesting looking. And what we're doing for this here is we are taking bricks away and we're making it artistic, but if I take too many bricks away, I lose the entire structure. So I don't want to do that. I again want to make sure that the structure stays strong enough to be able to support this. You might be saying, well, how am I going to follow this haircut the next time my client comes in? That was a big question many, many years ago when texturizing became popular. What we have to understand is we can't just go in and do these techniques over and over and over again, because again, just like I mentioned a moment ago, the structure will fall apart. So what we would do is every other haircut or so, we wouldn't texturize it, we would just build the building again and then come in afterwards and not do this texturizing. So about every other haircut or every third haircut, depending on how much texturizing you're doing, you would then go in and actually create the texture again, but not every time you do this client's haircut. It's like a razor cut. If you're cutting a client with a razor and you keep doing a razor cut after razor cut after razor cut over and over and over again, you're gonna lose it. So what we do is, as a hairdresser, when we're doing razor clients, what we need to tell them is that every other haircut or every third haircut, I gotta go back in and put the scissor to it because I need to strengthen up that hair again. And then we can go back and do a razor cut afterwards. Now, I'm going to start, my body position is going to stay in front because it would be impossible for me to stay back here and create the same texture that I did on the opposite side. So I'm going to have to turn the client, and on this side of the head, I'm going to have to come here, and I'm going to have to stay in front of her, hand position here, so that I can get the natural motion of this technique. 2 more sections on this side. And again, making sure that when I'm done with this haircut, I have not lost the integrity of the shape of this building. There's one more technique I want to implement, and that's up on top here because of the length of the haircut. I want to actually keep the length, but I do want to take it even shorter or texturized a bit more than what it currently is. And that is, I'm going to take this haircut and I'm going to use small squares, about 1 inch by 1 inch. Okay? And again, I can use a razor to do this, or I can do a scissor. What I'm doing is I'm going to wet twist this and just nip at that. Now this is going to create separation on the top, but again, making sure that I don't lose any of the length. Keep the twists to themselves so you don't keep going over the same twist. And the idea of this technique called wet twisting is that the length in the center of this will stay the longest, and then everything around it will create shortness, meaning it'll create separation in the haircut because this area around that square is going to be shorter and then the middle is going to stay longer. Again, just coming in and doing a couple of squares through the top. A lot of these texturizing techniques originated in the 80s when people wanted spiky hair or big hair and stuff like that. And the only way we were able to get it to lift or to get away from the scalp is to create short bits that would help when they blow dry their hair to have these short bits to stand up the longer hair. Because again, idea of short hair pushes and supports long hair. Okay, so here's our finished version of the haircut that I just finished. And again, the idea of creating a more modern appearance to a classic haircut, which is a square bob or a horizontal graduated bob, by just using texturizing. So I haven't introduced any combination cutting in any way, shape, or form. I simply transformed this classic haircut done in horizontal graduation in a straight line or square shape, and I just went in and texturized it for you. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just add a little bit of product and show you about the versatility of this haircut. Also, I'm going to show you a little bit about how we can make that fringe change direction as well. We're going to take a little bit of the cream here, and I'm going to create a little bit of texture for you. So the products that we use on dry hair is really for us to be able to create some messiness or change in the texture of the hair. And by just taking this product and shaking it around, I'm activating the shorts and the longs in this haircut for the individual client. Now again, don't have to do it this way, don't have to blow dry it this way. I can make it as soft as I want, or I can make it as voluminous as I want, depending on the individual client. The versatility comes is, as you can see by me working this hair with this product, is the individual could have worn the hair very smooth like we showed you just a moment ago, or if she's going out or doing something that evening, she can take this product with her when she's going out after work and just go into the room, go into an area and put this product in, and now create whatever she wants with the look. And that's where the versatility comes in. Voluminous, not voluminous, height, not height, texture, not texture, and that's really how it works. So it is really, really important for us to be able to create a look or a haircut that is versatile for our clients of today. They want to be able to change up their looks. They want to be able to douse it down or make it more modern if they want. They want it subtle. They want it drastic, all in the same haircut. And by using the texturizing techniques that we showed you, we can do that for them, or we could actually leave it as a classic haircut. But not too many people are buying classic haircuts these days. What I'm going to do now for you is I'm going to just very quickly just show you how I can eliminate that double fringe. So what I did for you there is I just took the texture, or I took the haircut, and I took that double fringe away that we showed off earlier, and just by blowing drying that shorter hair or the shorter fringe, the under fringe, instead of showing it off, we decided to hide it. And again, we could do whatever we want with it, but it'll help to support this back away from her face. And then again, she could always take a little bit of a blow dryer or a product and pull it back down if she wants. Really up to her. But that's our conclusion of our modernization, if you will, of the square line bob. Classic haircut, never going to go out of style. Texture is there. Again, not a combination haircut. Don't mistake this where I went in and layered it or did some other type of technique. I simply took the horizontally graduated bob done in a straight line or a square shape and texturized it for you, and then created a little bit of a fringe area, a new design in the fringe area. So I did adjust the shape of that structure a little bit with the face design. However, the rest of the haircut is still a square bob, but now I feel something that could be worn anywhere in today's day and age. Hope you enjoyed this session. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you soon.